Oh, God.
The sin this man committed could not be forgiven.
Now recommend to the court that the defendant, Timothy R. Jones, Jr., be sentenced to death.
On September 6, 2014, a chilling scene unfolded in a remote wooded area near Ridgeville, South Carolina. As local authorities scoured the area, they stumbled upon several large trash bags. Inside, police found the lifeless bodies of 5 children, wrapped tightly in an attempt to hide the unspeakable act. The bodies, in various stages of decomposition, told a grim story of violence and betrayal. Forensic evidence later revealed that the children had been murdered days before the discovery, and their cruel killer was none other than their own father. His name was Timothy Jones, Jr.
Ton was dead, and then what happened?
And I followed suit with the other 4.
And how did you kill them?
That was with my hands.
With your hands? Can you describe what you mean by with your hands?
Around their neck.
Around their neck? Okay.
Today, we'll be discussing one of the most disturbing cases in American history, where the father, a figure meant to protect his children, carried out an unthinkable act of horror. What really happened? What could have driven this man to commit such a heinous crime? Brace yourself as the shocking truth is about to be revealed. Before we dive in, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any updates on our latest true crime stories. Now, let's get started. Timothy Jones, Jr. was born in 1981 to Timothy Jones, Sr. and Cindy Jones. From the very beginning, his life was steeped in hardship. His mother abandoned the family when he was only 18 months old, leaving him to grow up without her love and care. His father, Jones Sr., remarried quickly, but the new family dynamic was far from nurturing. Both parents were believed to have neglected him, setting him on a path of rebellion and trouble. In 2001, he was arrested in Illinois on charges of cocaine possession, check forgery, and car theft. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but was released after only 2 years. After his release from prison, he met Dean Amber Kaiser, and the two married in 2004. Together, they had 3 children. Jones Jr. later pursued an education, earning an engineering degree from Mississippi State University. By 2014, they had expanded to a household of 5 children: 8-year-old Mara, 7-year-old Elias, 6-year-old Nathan, 2-year-old Gabriel, and 1-year-old Abigail Elaine. From the outside, it seemed Timothy Jones Jr. had rebuilt his life with a stable career and family. However, over time, his marriage began to unravel. Jones struggled with alcohol, smoking, and synthetic marijuana, which took a toll on his relationship. His relationship with his wife hit rock bottom when Jones began to doubt that Abigail Elaine, his youngest child, was his biological daughter. In 2013, Amber and Jones divorced, with Jones gaining custody of their children. Though heartbroken after losing custody, Amber believed that Timothy Jones Jr. was a good and responsible father, capable of taking care of and protecting his children. She could never have foreseen that this outcome would ultimately lead her children to their tragic fate. August 28, 2014 was what seemed like an ordinary day. Jones Jr. picked up his 3 older children from school and then collected his 2 youngest from their babysitter. But by the next morning, he and the children had disappeared without a trace. The babysitter was the first to feel that something was off. At 9:36 a.m., August 29th, she called Jones to arrange a pickup, but there was no answer. Growing concerned, she sent him a text, asking if she should take the children to daycare. Minutes passed before Jones finally responded. He said they were going on a trip and assured her the kids would be back by Tuesday, after Memorial Day. At 4:54 p.m. that same day, she texted Jones again, reminding him to bring diapers when he dropped off Gabriel and Abigail Elaine. Her text was left unread. Having witnessed Jones's erratic and abusive behavior before, she soon suspected this trip was far from ordinary. In the meantime, aware of Jones's strange behavior, his ex-wife Amber called him, but it went straight to voicemail.
Tim, I'm not calling to argue or anything. I just, the past 2 or 3 phone calls, you've been, really on edge. I'm saying you're, coming off really frustrated or whatever. And I was just concerned about you, so. Please call. I'm not calling to argue or anything.
She pleaded, her voice filled with desperation and sincerity. But it made no difference. Jones refused to respond. On August 30th, his grandmother, Roberta Thornsberry, repeatedly tried to reach him from Mississippi. She called and sent multiple texts asking why he wasn't responding and what he was doing, but again, she got no reply. Then, on September 1st at 6:15 p.m., the babysitter received a strange call from Jones. He revealed that he planned to leave South Carolina with the children and start a new life. He asked her to clean his mobile home and told her she could take anything he left behind. Her worry quickly turned to fear when she realized Jones had no intention of bringing the children back. She immediately contacted law enforcement and Child Protective Services, reporting her concerns for the children's safety. A nationwide alert was issued, stating that Jones was missing with his 5 children. Days passed with no sign of them until September 6, 2014. In Smith County, Mississippi, what began as a routine traffic stop quickly turned sinister. Deputies detained Timothy Jones Jr. at a checkpoint, and an hour later, Sheriff Marty Patterson arrived at the scene. He immediately sensed something was wrong with Jones. He looked intoxicated, and a foul stench wafted from his Cadillac Escalade. Bleached stains along the baseboards raised immediate suspicion. When officers ran his ID and license plate, they got a chilling hit from the FBI's National Crime Information Center. Jones was supposed to be traveling with his 5 children. But the children were nowhere to be seen. Patterson wasted no time and contacted the Lexington County Sheriff's Department. When questioned about his children, Jones first denied having any. The officers pressed further, and he admitted to having 3 children back in South Carolina. Alarmed? Smith County investigators contacted Jones's father, who quickly informed his grandmother, Roberta Thornsberry, and his ex-wife, Amber. On September 8, 2014, detectives from the Lexington County Sheriff's Department and SLED arrived in Mississippi to take over the investigation. As they pressed Jones for answers, the weight of his secrets began to crush him. Timothy Jones Jr. broke down and confessed to his crime. He admitted that he had killed his 5 children in South Carolina and was on his way to get rid of their bodies.
You know where you are?
Yes.
Where is that?
Smith County.
Smith County? You know who you are?
Tim Jones.
Tim Jones, what's your date of birth, Tim?
12/20/81.
You know why we've been talking to you?
Trying to find out what happened to my kids.
Okay. You understand that you've just confessed to a crime?
Yes.
After his confession, law enforcement launched a multi-state search for the children's bodies. On September 9, 2014, with Jones's guidance, the bodies of the 5 children were discovered in a rural area of Camden, Alabama. The scene was so disturbing, it left even seasoned officers shaken. Dumped in the dark woods, what remained of the children was stuffed into several garbage bags, their tiny bodies crammed and twisted unnaturally. The heat and humidity had accelerated decomposition, skin was bloated and discolored, their features barely recognizable. Some remains had even begun to liquefy. It was clear the murders had occurred days earlier. Alongside the corpses, investigators found personal items, family photos, children's drawings, letters from their mother, clothing, Bibles, and Jones's diploma and passport. But what truly horrified them were the handwritten notes Jones had left behind. He had meticulously outlined a vicious plan to dispose of his children's bodies. Jones Jr. intended to burn the bodies and grind the bones into dust, erasing every trace of his children. It was beyond comprehension. This father, the one meant to protect them, had heartlessly planned their deaths. Step by step, he plotted how to destroy their fragile bodies without a shred of remorse, treating his own flesh and blood like garbage to be discarded and forgotten. The murderer had been caught, the bodies had been found, but one crucial question remained. Why did he do it? What exactly happened on that fateful day? Why did Jones kill his children, and what drove him to hide their bodies? To shed light on the dark truth of what Jones did during the week he disappeared with his children, we must go back to where it all began. August 28, 2014, the afternoon that seemed like any other. Timothy Jones picked up his 3 older children from school and then collected his 2 youngest from the babysitter. But before the day was over, everything would take a terrifying turn. At 7 p.m. that evening, Jones discovered an electrical outlet at home wasn't working. He blamed his 6-year-old son, Nathan, who earlier had shown interest in electricity. To get a confession, Jones forced Nathan to do intense physical exercises, including push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. Despite the punishment, Nathan insisted he hadn't touched the outlet. During a phone call with his mother, Nathan mentioned it was just an accident before Jones abruptly ended the call. Later that night, Nathan was sent to bed. His mother tried to reach him again, but her calls went unanswered. By 8:30 p.m., Jones either found Nathan lifeless or realized he couldn't wake him. The brutal reality set in: his son was dead. The harsh punishment had been too much for his fragile body. Nathan had died from exhaustion and extreme physical stress. In his later confession, Jones claimed paranoia drove him to kill. He believed Nathan was trying to harm him through the mobile home's electricity, and that delusion led him down a murderous path. In the early hours of the next morning, Jones took his 8-year-old daughter, Mara, to a convenience store to buy cigarettes. But when they returned, tragedy struck again. After Nathan's death, something inside Jones snapped completely. His last grip on sanity shattered. He strangled Mara and her 7-year-old brother, Elias, with his bare hands. He then used a belt to kill 2-year-old Gabriel and 1-year-old Abigail Elaine. After the ordeal, he wrapped their tiny bodies in sheets and blankets from their beds, placing them in black garbage bags and stuffing them in the back of his Escalade. Already lifeless in the trunk, but the children still couldn't escape their father's madness. Jones drove through Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, scouring for synthetic marijuana, while his children's bodies remained in the back seat. Later, investigators uncovered his internet search history, exposing Tim Jones's disturbed obsession with the drug. Before getting caught on September 6, Jones dumped the bodies of his 5 children along a rural logging road between Greenville and Camden, Alabama. By then, the bodies of his children had been in the back of his vehicle for over a week, decomposing in black plastic garbage bags. No normal person could fathom why a father would commit such a monstrous act against his own children. Was it the drugs he used? Or was there something deeper, something wrong with his psychology? The investigation soon focused on Timothy Jones Jr.'s mental condition to find answers for the horror that had unfolded. Clinical and forensic psychiatrists debated his diagnosis, and many conflicting theories were presented for the jury to consider. Some believed he suffered from schizoaffective disorder or a personality disorder. Others argued that his mental breakdown could have been triggered by synthetic marijuana or a traumatic brain injury he sustained at age 15, which may have contributed to underlying psychosis. To understand the roots of Jones's mental state, the trial explored the troubled history of the Jones family, spanning 3 generations. The jury was shown how a turbulent environment and a family history of mental illness may have shaped his mind. It began with his father, Jones Sr., born from a nightmare when his mother, Roberta Thornsberry, became pregnant at 12 after being assaulted by her stepfather. Despite the trauma, she raised his father while navigating a chaotic and abusive household, marked by police calls for shootings, stabbings, drug use, and domestic violence. Tim Jr.'s mother, Cynthia, also battled mental illness. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, she was confined to a mental hospital after losing a bitter custody fight. Tim Jr. was left in the care of his grandmother, Roberta, while his father remarried several times, leaving the family fractured and unstable. By the time Tim Jr. was 16, he had watched his family fall apart more than once. After prison, Jones married Amber and tried to start fresh. However, his relationship with his father remained toxic. A final argument during Christmas in 2012 led to 18 months of silence between father and son. That holiday would be the last time Jones Sr. saw his grandchildren. This complex web of family trauma, mental illness, and broken relationships was laid bare in court, helping the jury understand how these factors may have shaped Tim Jones Jr. and contributed to his horrific actions. The trial began on May 15, 2019, and it didn't take long for the courtroom to be filled with emotional testimony that would shape the case. Law enforcement officials, mental health professionals, correctional officers, Teachers, school administrators, babysitters, and even Jones's own family members took the stand. Each person provided crucial insight into Jones's life, his actions, and the horrifying crime he committed. From the start, Jones's guilt was clear. He had confessed, and the evidence was undeniable. But despite this, his defense team worked hard to build a case suggesting that Jones wasn't fully responsible for what he had done. They argued that he was severely mentally ill, pointing to a long history of psychiatric issues and claiming that his mental state had been altered by synthetic marijuana. In conclusion, they suggested that his psychosis, fueled by both mental illness and drug use, led him to commit the horrific acts. While the defense painted Jones as a man driven by mental instability, the prosecution took a different approach. They focused on the fact that Jones was fully aware of his actions, even if his mental health had been compromised. The crime was deliberate, and the actions he took afterward, trying to cover up what he had done, proved that he was not a man lost in delusion, but one who was capable of making calculated choices.
The baton collapses. He's dead. What does that man say? Tim, your life is over. Not, oh my God, my son is down. My life is over. Tom Jones may claim he loves his family, but there's somebody he loves more than anybody. That's Tim Jones. He knew he lost everything right then and there. Everything. This world is gone. How do you get out of it? You don't. You got a dead child. You got a dead child. So what does he do? He burns the rest of his dream down. He burns it all down. But he stops. He takes time to think about it. It looks like maybe several hours of thinking. He consciously decides. Remember Dr. Fry's conscious decision? He consciously decides to end it all. Oh, not him. Tim Jones is going to kill Tim Jones. He's going to kill those babies.
As the trial proceeded, it became clear that the jury had little sympathy for the defense's argument. They listened carefully to both sides, but ultimately, they rejected the notion that Tim Jones's mental state should absolve him of responsibility for the murders. During the sentencing phase, the prosecution brought forward teachers and former babysitters to describe the deep trauma caused by the loss of these innocent children. Their testimonies showed how deeply Jones's actions affected everyone who knew the children. The defense, in contrast, did not bring forward any expert testimony to challenge the prosecution's case, but instead relied heavily on emotional pleas from Jones's family members.
You want Tim to be put to death?
No, sir. I don't, I love him so much. I don't want to hurt no more. I mean, I've hurt enough. I mean, it's destroyed my family. So no, I don't.
His father and grandmother, clearly devastated by the tragedy, took the stand. Through tears, they spoke of a broken man, a son and grandson who had been lost to his mental illness long before the murders. They begged the jury to show mercy, arguing that Jones's life should be spared. Then came Amber Kaiser, the mother of the children and Jones's ex-wife. She had already testified once, her first appearance marked by tears and visible distress. But now, her voice was steadier. Though still laced with pain, she made the brave decision to ask for mercy for her ex-husband despite the horrific loss of her children. I pray for Tim all the time. I pray for him often. I pray for his family, and I pray for mine. I can't bring myself to want anyone to die. I hope for mercy for you. I pray for you often, but I don't excuse what you've done. Despite these emotional pleas, the prosecution was not moved. He showed two photos, one of a happy family, the other of the children's lifeless bodies. Hubbard urged the jury to see Jones for who he was, a man who destroyed his own family.
The second life left Natan's body, he no longer has the right to be called Dad. No father does that to his children.
Hubbard argued that Jones had been given every opportunity to do better, but instead, He chose to betray his children's trust in the most disgusting way.
The only pattern you really see are choices. He's not the product of a bad DNA milkshake, sprung out Tim, and you instantly have a murderer. This is a guy who had gifts. He had gifts. And he had 5 beautiful treasures. He never lacked for attention. His dad went to all his events. His dad went to his graduations. It's a pattern of choices, and he has chosen to be what he is today, which is a murderer.
Hubbard pointed out Tim's manipulative behavior throughout his life, noting how he had used his family's love and loyalty to manipulate them, knowing they would always come back to him. Hubbard pointed out that, despite his father's difficult childhood, he had tried to provide for his son, and his grandmother had shown him love. However, Tim had manipulated their care, growing entitled and using his family for his own benefit. In his closing, Hubbard challenged the jury to reflect on the images and the crime scene, urging them to ask themselves if a man who could do such a thing deserved a merciful sentence.
Look, open the bag. If you have any doubt about the appropriate sentence for that man, look in the bag. Gabriel, that little boy, crammed in a bag. Look, if you have any doubt, what's appropriate? What fits this crime?
After just 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict, rejecting the defense's attempt to portray Jones as a victim of his circumstances. They found him fully responsible for his actions. The case then shifted to the sentencing phase, where the jury would decide whether Jones deserved the death penalty. Despite the gravity of the situation, Jones remained silent, and the haunting audio confession he had made to authorities in 2014 was played in court, sealing his fate. It took the jury just an hour and 45 minutes of intense deliberation to reach a decision. The jury delivered their verdict: death. All 12 jurors agreed, considering the gravity of Jones's crimes. The Jones family left the courthouse in silence, grief for their son and also their grandchildren. Yet this case was far from the end. In 2021, 2 years after being sentenced to death, Jones sought a new trial. His defense argued that the graphic autopsy photos shown during the trial had unfairly influenced the jury's decision. They claimed that Jones's schizophrenia made him incapable of fully understanding the consequences of his actions, and that the disturbing photos had evoked an emotional response, making it impossible for the jury to fairly judge him. Despite these arguments, the South Carolina Supreme Court rejected the appeal in March 2023. While the court acknowledged 2 errors during the trial, it ruled they were not significant enough to overturn the conviction. One mistake involved excluding testimony from an expert who could have challenged claims about Jones's mental state, but the court found it didn't impact the outcome. The other error was the use of the autopsy photos, which the court determined had not unduly influenced the jury's decision. Ultimately, the court upheld the death penalty, concluding that Jones's actions were so heinous that he had forfeited any claim to mercy. The case closed, and Timothy Jones Jr. faced the harsh reality of his execution. Jones's family, especially his father and grandmother, were caught in a heartbreaking conflict of grief and anger. They saw a man consumed by his demons and pleaded for mercy, but their cries fell on deaf ears. Having already lost 5 grandchildren, now they were about to lose their son. Their agony must be unbearable. Amber Kaiser, the children's mother, was equally torn. She had lost everything, yet found herself praying for mercy for the man who had taken her children's lives. Her words, filled with pain, haunted the courtroom as she expressed her pain but refused to excuse his crime. Justice has been served, but this case raises within the public uncomfortable questions about the justice system, mental illness, and mercy. Should the law show mercy to those with severe mental illness? Or is there a point when mercy is no longer an option? Can someone who commits such a terrible act ever be rehabilitated, or does their crime define them forever? Do you think the death sentence was justified, or should Jones have received life imprisonment instead? We want to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe.